I sat in the gleaming conference room of Summit Technologies, watching my father-in-law, Richard Bennett, shuffle through the quarterly reports. Across from me, my husband James and his mother Eleanor exchanged smug glances, probably calculating how much of my next paycheck they could spend. The company needs fresh capital, Richard announced, frowning at the numbers. We're losing market share to newer security firms. If Sarah would just contribute more to the family fund, Eleanor began, shooting me a pointed look, we could invest more in the company. I bit back a smile. They had no idea that my contribution to their family fund was just a small portion of my actual income. I already give you my entire salary from WebSafe Solutions, I reminded them quietly. All $85,000 of it. And you should be grateful we let you keep enough for lunch, Eleanor sniffed. When I married Richard, I handed over everything I earned. It's tradition. James nodded in agreement. The family fund is what built this company, Sarah. You should be honored to be part of it. What they didn't know was that while they were taking my WebSafe salary, my freelance work under the name Phoenix Security was earning me millions. The same millions I'd used to buy Summit Technologies shares through a series of shell companies. The shareholders' meeting is next week, Richard continued. We need to show them a strong plan for digital transformation. Perhaps if Sarah worked harder at WebSafe, Eleanor suggested, she could get a promotion, more money for the family fund. I thought about the promotion I turned down 6 months ago. It would have meant less time for my freelance work, the work that had allowed me to silently acquire 51% of Summit Technologies shares. Sarah knows her place, James said dismissively. Besides, she's not exactly executive material. Richard cleared his throat uncomfortably. He'd never fully supported his wife and son's financial control over me, but he'd never opposed it either. Actually, I spoke up, I've been thinking about career advancement. Eleanor laughed sharply. Oh, finally realizing you need to contribute more? 3 years of your meager salary hardly compares to what James brings in. I opened my laptop, pulling up a secure email. No, I was thinking more about corporate ownership. This is a board meeting, James snapped, not career counseling. Funny you should mention the board, I smiled, hitting send. You should all be receiving an email right now. 3 phones chimed simultaneously. I watched their faces as they read the message from the company's legal team. This must be a mistake, Richard stammered, his face paling. These documents show that Phoenix Security owns 51% of Summit Technologies. I finished for him, no mistake. Eleanor's perfectly manicured hand trembled as she gripped her phone. Phoenix Security, that impossible-to-hire consulting firm that charges millions. The one that's been taking all your potential clients? I smiled. That's me. James jumped to his feet. You're lying. You're just a junior developer at WebSoft. No, I corrected calmly. I'm a cybersecurity expert who let you think I was just a junior developer. While you were taking my WebSafe salary, I was building an empire. But the family fund, Eleanor sputtered, was never about family, was it? I met her gaze steadily. It was about control, about keeping your daughter-in-law in her place. Richard was still staring at the documents. These signatures, these acquisitions, you've been buying shares for months. While you were focused on traditional security solutions, I was developing next-generation cybersecurity tools. The same tools your clients are now buying from me. You can't do this, James protested. That money belongs to the family fund. My WebSafe salary did. Phoenix Security's earnings. I gestured to the documents. Those bought me your company. Eleanor turned to Richard. Do something. She can't just take over. Actually, Richard said slowly, studying the financial reports with new understanding she already has. These protocols she's implemented, they're years ahead of our current systems. The shareholders meeting next week, I continued, will be to announce the merger of Phoenix Security and Summit Technologies, under my leadership. You planned this, James accused. All those nights you were working late at WebSoft. I was building something of my own, something you couldn't take from me. Richard set down the reports, looking at me with what might have been respect. Why reveal yourself now? Because Summit Technologies has potential, real potential, but not under leadership that values tradition over talent. Eleanor stood up, straightening her designer jacket. The board won't stand for this. A woman with no real business experience. You mean the CEO of Phoenix Security? I interrupted. The firm that's been featured in every major tech magazine. That kind of experience. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. 3 years of their financial control, their condescension, their certainty that I was just a junior developer who needed to know her place. All of it shattered by the documents on their phones. The allowance you gave me from my own salary, I continued, paid for my coffee while I built a security empire, one that's now worth more than Summit Technologies ever was. This is ridiculous, James sputtered. I'm your husband. That money belongs to the family. No, I said firmly. It belongs to the person who earned it. And now, so does this company. Richard was still reading, his expression shifting from shock to something like admiration. These security protocols, they're brilliant. They're the future, I agreed, something Summit Technologies needs badly. As my in-laws grappled with their new reality, I opened another file on my laptop. Now shall we discuss the transition of leadership? I have some ideas about digital transformation that the shareholders will want to hear. The next week crawled by like a slow-loading program. Eleanor tried every social connection she had to block the takeover, while James alternated between threats and attempts at reconciliation. Baby, we can work this out, he pleaded. The family fund was for our future. No, I corrected him, it was about control, and that program has just been terminated. I sat in my home office, reviewing the final merger documents when my phone buzzed. Richard's name flashed on the screen. Your security architecture, he said without preamble, is not just ahead of the market. It's revolutionary. I know, I pulled up the presentation I prepared for tomorrow's shareholders meeting. That's why your biggest clients have been jumping ship to Phoenix. Why did you ever say anything? Show me what you could do. I thought about all the family dinners where I tried to discuss cybersecurity only to have Eleanor dismiss it as boring shop talk and James redirect the conversation to his own accomplishments. Would you have listened? I asked quietly, or would Eleanor have reminded everyone that wives should focus on supporting their husbands? His silence was answer enough. Sarah. James burst into my office without knocking. Mother's found a legal precedent. As your husband, I have rights to your business assets. No, I cut him off. You don't. Phoenix Security was established before our marriage, and your precious family fund only got my WebSafe salary, which is well documented. He deflated slightly, then rallied. But we're married. Everything should be shared. Like how you shared decision-making about my salary, I switched my phone to speaker mode. Richard, would you like to hear how your son manages shared finances? James paled. His father might be passive about many things, but financial ethics wasn't one of them. James, Richard's voice was tight. What exactly have you and your mother been doing with Sarah's salary? It's tradition. James protested. Mother always says wives should contribute everything to the family. Everything of mine, Eleanor strode in, waving her phone. But nothing of yours. I've just seen Sarah's complete portfolio. Phoenix Security has been operating for 5 years. She started it before meeting James. Yes, I smiled. With seed money from my first patents. The ones you called hobby projects when I tried to discuss them. Richard's sharp intake of breath crackled over the speaker. Patents? What patents? The quantum encryption protocols that Summit Technologies has been trying to replicate for the past 2 years, I said calmly. Among others. Eleanor sank into a chair, her perfect posture crumbling. All this time, while we were treating your WebSafe salary like pocket change, I was building something you couldn't control or diminish. I finished. Tomorrow's shareholders meeting isn't about a hostile takeover. It's about saving Summit Technologies from technological obsolescence. By taking control from the family, James demanded. No, Richard's voice cut in. By giving control to someone who actually understands the future of cybersecurity. He paused. The board has reviewed your proposal, Sarah. They're voting in favor of the merger. Eleanor's face went from cream to crimson. Richard, you can't possibly. I can, and I am, he interrupted. Do you know what I found when I really looked at Summit's books? While you and James were forcing Sarah to hand over her salary, claiming it was for company investment, you were spending it on country club memberships and luxury cars. James took a step back. Father, we can explain. Explain why you financially abused your wife while she was building a company worth 10 times what Summit is now. Richard's voice was cold. I don't think you can. It was Mother's idea, James blurted. Eleanor gasped. How dare you? I taught you about family tradition, about keeping wives in their proper place. And I let you, Richard said heavily. I watched you control and demean Sarah, and I said nothing. That ends now. I pulled up another document on my screen. I have a proposal, I said quietly, one that could save everyone's reputation. They all turned to look at me, the woman they tried so hard to keep in her place. Summit Technologies merges with Phoenix Security. I take over as CEO. In exchange, we tell the press it was a planned succession all along. Richard gets to retire with dignity, and no one needs to know about the family fund tradition. And what about us? Eleanor demanded. You get to keep your social standing, but my salary? I smiled. That's no longer your concern. I'll divorce you, James threatened. Take half of everything. Try it, I suggested mildly. I'm sure the courts would be very interested in 3 years of documented financial coercion, not to mention the separate accounts proving Phoenix Security was never part of our marital assets. Richard cleared his throat. Sarah's offer is more than fair. More than you deserve. But, Eleanor began. No, Richard cut her off. No more traditions. No more control. Tomorrow, we announce the merger as Sarah suggested, and then we all learn to live with the consequences of our actions. I watched my husband and mother-in-law struggle with their new reality. The woman they'd seen as a simple developer, someone to be controlled and diminished, had outmaneuvered them completely. The shareholders' meeting is at 9, I said, turning back to my presentation. I suggest you all review the merger documents before then. The future of Summit Technologies depends on it. As they filed out of my office, James paused at the door. I never knew. Why didn't you tell me what you were capable of? I tried, I said softly. You just couldn't hear me over the sound of your mother counting my salary. Sometimes, I thought as I refined my presentation, the best firewalls aren't built with code. They are built with silence, strategy, and the perfect moment to press execute. The transformation of both Summit Technologies and my in-laws over the next 6 months surprised everyone, especially those who'd witnessed their previous reign of financial control. Initially, Eleanor retreated to her social circles, emerging only to spread rumors about modern wives who don't respect tradition. But when her country club friends started seeking my advice on tech investments, she found herself facing an unfamiliar status, irrelevant. The turning point came through, of all things, a cybersecurity breach. I need help, she called one evening, her voice missing its usual superiority. Someone's gotten into my banking accounts. James says you're the only one who can fix this. I could have refused. Part of me wanted to. Instead, I said, come to my office tomorrow. First thing. The Eleanor who arrived at 7 a.m. was barely recognizable. Her designer suit was rumpled, her perfect hair disheveled, and her eyes held something I'd never seen before. Fear. My team of security experts, people Eleanor would have once dismissed as computer nerds, watched as I walked her through the recovery process. You have to protect yourself, I explained, showing her the security protocols. Trust has to be earned, just like respect. The irony of my words wasn't lost on anyone. What followed was what the staff called the Great Awakening. The woman who once demanded my entire salary now spent weekends learning about digital security and investment strategies. Your wife showed me how to secure my accounts today, she told James. She didn't even mock me for my terrible passwords. James, showing more growth than I'd expected, started attending my technical briefings. He'd sit quietly in the back, watching me command rooms full of industry leaders. One day, I overheard him ask Richard, "Why didn't we ever see what she could do, Dad?" Richard set down his tablet, hands trembling. Because we were too busy enforcing traditions to recognize innovation, he admitted softly. We were so focused on control that we missed the future standing right in front of us. Like when she tried to tell us about her patents. Yes, Richard whispered, your mother and I were so wrong. Control isn't leadership, it's just fear wearing a crown. The real breakthrough came during our first Women in Tech conference. A young developer presented her security solution, not fancy or complex, but brilliantly innovative. The old Eleanor would have dismissed her. The new Eleanor spent hours helping her connect with investors. "This is real progress," she said afterward, "not just in technology, but in how we treat people." Later that evening, as we closed the office, Eleanor lingered by my desk. "I've been thinking," she said quietly, "about our traditions." "Oh, yes. I'd like to start a mentorship program, teaching young women about finance and technology, helping them stand on their own." I studied her face, looking for any trace of her old controlling nature. Found none. "That's a generous idea," I said carefully, "but it would mean admitting you were wrong about women's roles." "Sometimes the best traditions are the ones we create ourselves," she replied, watching a female developer demonstrate her code to James. "I just wish I'd learned that sooner." James, who'd been pretending not to listen, joined us. For the first time ever, he looked at me with genuine admiration. "Will you help with the program?" Eleanor asked. "Better." I smiled. "We'll build it together and break plenty of outdated traditions along the way." I looked at them both uncertainly. If you're ready for that." They nodded, watching decades of toxic control dissolve like outdated code. As we left that night, James looked at the company logo. Now a merger of Summit and Phoenix. "Look at what you built, Sarah. Sometimes the best success stories come from being underestimated." "Yes," I agreed, watching Eleanor hold the door open for a young female intern. "And sometimes people change when they realize control isn't the same as respect." The office lights dimmed behind us, but the glow of transformation lit our path forward. In the end, it wasn't about money or revenge or even corporate success. It was about learning that true family traditions shouldn't cage people, they should help them soar. As Richard often says now, the best investments aren't in controlling others, they're in letting them show you who they really are.